The year was 2157, and space felt bigger than ever before. Captain Jake Rodriguez stood on the bridge of the UES Prometheus, watching the stars drift by through the massive viewing window. 3 months into their deep space patrol, the crew had settled into their usual routine: coffee in the morning, system checks, and long stretches of absolutely nothing happening. Jake had been doing this job for 15 years now. He'd seen first contact with alien species, watched humanity build colonies on distant worlds, and helped establish the peace treaties that kept everyone safe. But lately, space felt too quiet, too peaceful. Something in his gut told him that wouldn't last forever. "Captain, I'm picking up something strange," called out communications officer Lisa Park from her station. She had been with the Prometheus crew for 2 years and had never sounded this confused before. "It's not like anything I've seen in our databases." Jake walked over to her station, his boots making soft clicking sounds on the metal floor. "What kind of strange?" Lisa pointed at her screen, where waves of green light danced across the display. "It's encrypted, but not with any human technology. The patterns are too complex, too organized. Look at this." She pulled up another screen showing mathematical sequences that seemed to repeat and evolve. "These aren't random signals. Someone is trying to talk to us." In the back corner of the bridge, Staff Sergeant David Chen looked up from his tactical display. David was one of those soldiers who had seen too much and lived to tell about it. 5 years ago, he'd been at Titan Station when first contact went wrong. Out of his entire unit, only 3 people survived that day. The experience had changed him, made him more careful about jumping to conclusions when it came to alien contact. Could be a trap, David said, walking over to join them. "Remember what happened at Titan Station? The aliens there seemed friendly at first too." Jake nodded. He remembered the reports. Diplomatic first contact that turned into a battle in less than 10 minutes. Hundreds of human casualties because someone misread the situation. But these signals are different. They're not trying to lure us anywhere. They're just calling out. Lisa worked her fingers across the keyboard, trying different decryption methods. "Captain, I think I'm breaking through the encryption. Give me a few more minutes." The bridge fell silent except for the soft humming of the ship's engines and the gentle beeping of Lisa's computer. Jake found himself holding his breath as the green waves on the screen began to form patterns that almost looked familiar. "Got it," Lisa exclaimed. "The signal contains universal mathematical constants and what looks like pictographs. Basic shapes, star patterns, atomic structures. Whoever sent this knows we'd understand these concepts." She transferred the decoded message to the main screen. Everyone on the bridge gathered around as words began to appear in simple English. The translation system had worked its magic, but the message itself sent chills down everyone's spine. "Ancient enemy returns, Queen's children dying. Seek the warrior heart of Earthborn. Time grows short." Jake stared at the message for a long moment. "Warrior heart of Earthborn. They're talking about us, aren't they?" David stepped forward, his expression serious. "Captain, there's more data coming through. Coordinates. They want us to go somewhere." The coordinates appeared on the navigation screen. The location was 3 days away in uncharted space, far beyond the normal patrol routes. Jake felt that familiar knot in his stomach that always appeared before big decisions. "Sir," said Navigator Tony Williams from his station, "those coordinates would take us way off our assigned patrol route. Command expects us to report in tomorrow." Jake knew the rules. Stick to the mission. Report unusual contacts. Don't go chasing alien signals into unknown space without authorization. But something about this message felt different. The word dying stuck in his mind. Someone out there needed help. "Lisa, can you trace where the signal came from?" "Already did, Captain. It's coming from the exact coordinates they sent us. Whatever's out there, it's not moving. It's just sitting in space, broadcasting this message over and over." David walked to the weapon systems console and checked their status. "Captain, I know what you're thinking, but we're just one patrol ship. If this is some kind of trap, we wouldn't stand a chance against a hostile alien force." "And if it's not a trap?" Jake asked. If there really are dying children out there who need our help, the bridge crew exchanged glances. Everyone knew about Jake's reputation for bending rules when lives were at stake. 2 years ago, he disobeyed orders to rescue colonists from a failing space station. The rescue had been successful, but Command hadn't been happy about the unauthorized mission. Lisa looked up from her station. "Captain, I'm detecting more signals now, weaker ones. But they're all coming from the same location. It's like someone is trying to reach out to anyone who will listen." Jake made his decision. "Tony, plot a course for those coordinates. Best possible speed, sir," David said quietly. "Command will want to know why we're abandoning our patrol route." "We're investigating a possible first contact situation," Jake replied. "It falls under emergency protocols." 3 days later, the Prometheus arrived at the coordinates. What they found there made everyone on the bridge stop and stare in amazement. Floating in the darkness of space was a ship unlike anything humanity had ever seen. The vessel was enormous, easily the size of a small city. But it wasn't built from metal and plastic like human ships. Instead, it looked organic, like a massive piece of coral that had grown in the deep ocean. Its surface was covered in a network of flowing lights that pulsed gently like a heartbeat. "My God," whispered Lisa. "It's beautiful." David was already scanning the ship with their sensors. "Captain, I'm reading life signs. Thousands of them. But the energy readings are weak and getting weaker." As they watched, sections of the alien ship began to dim. The flowing lights that covered its surface flickered and went dark, one area at a time. Whatever was happening to the ship, it wasn't good. "We're being scanned," reported Tony from the navigation station. "Something on that ship is looking at us." Suddenly, Lisa's communication console lit up with activity. "Captain, incoming transmission." It's in perfect English." The voice that came through the speakers was soft and musical, but filled with desperate hope. "Human vessel, we have detected the warrior heart within you. We are the last of the Zephyrians, and our time grows short. Our children are dying, and our ancient enemy approaches. We request permission to come aboard your ship, or for your representatives to board ours. We mean no harm. We seek only the help that was promised in the old prophecies." Jake looked around the bridge at his crew. David's hand hovered near the weapon controls, but his expression showed curiosity rather than fear. Lisa was already working to analyze the transmission for any signs of deception. Tony was running calculations on approach vectors. "The warrior heart," Jake said quietly. "They're talking about humans, aren't they? About our willingness to fight for others." "Could be," David replied. "But why us? Why humans specifically?" Before anyone could answer, the alien ship's lights began to pulse faster, and new signals filled their communication array. Emergency broadcasts in languages they couldn't understand, but the tone was clear. "Something was very wrong on that ship, Captain," Lisa said, her voice tight with emotion. "I'm picking up what sounds like children crying. Lots of them." Jake closed his eyes for a moment, thinking of his own children back on Earth. When he opened them, his decision was made. "Lisa, send a response. Tell them we're coming aboard." As the Prometheus moved closer to the alien vessel, Jake couldn't shake the feeling that everything was about to change, not just for his crew, but for all of humanity. The message had mentioned an ancient enemy, dying children, and prophecies about Earth-born warriors. Whatever lay ahead, Jake knew there was no turning back now. The stars suddenly felt much less empty and much more dangerous than they had just a few days ago. The alien ship's docking bay opened like a flower blooming, revealing a soft, welcoming light. But as they prepared to board the shuttle that would take them over, David grabbed Jake's arm. "Captain, what if this is bigger than we can handle? What if we're walking into something that could affect all of humanity?" Jake looked out at the dying alien ship, its lights growing dimmer by the hour. "Then we better make sure we handle it right, because something tells me that if we don't help them now, we might not get another chance." As their shuttle approached the alien vessel, Jake couldn't help but wonder what they would find inside, and more importantly, what the ancient enemy was that had forced these beings to seek help from a species They'd never met face to face. The adventure was just beginning, and Jake had the feeling that nothing would ever be the same again. The shuttle bay doors sealed behind them with a sound like wind chimes. Jake and his team stepped out onto a floor that felt warm and slightly soft. Like walking on living tissue, the walls around them pulsed gently with bioluminescent patterns, creating a light that was somehow both alien and comforting. "This doesn't feel like any spaceship I've ever been on," whispered Dr. Elena Vasquez, the team's xenobiologist. She knelt down and placed her hand on the floor. "It's warm, almost like it's alive." David kept his weapon ready but not raised. His experience at Titan Station had taught him to be prepared for anything. But something about this place felt different. There was a sadness in the air, a sense of loss that reminded him more of a hospital than a military vessel. "Welcome, warriors of Earth." They all turned to see a figure approaching them through the corridor. Jake had to blink several times to make sure he was seeing correctly. The being walking toward them looked humanoid, but was unlike anything he had ever imagined. She stood about 7 feet tall, with skin that seemed to be made of liquid starlight. It was translucent and shimmered with colors that shifted between blue and silver. Her eyes were large and multifaceted like a dragonfly's, but they held an unmistakable intelligence and kindness. "I am Queen Lyrale," the being said, her voice carrying that same musical quality they had heard over the radio. "I am the last ruler of the Zephyrian people, and I am dying." Jake stepped forward, removing his helmet as a sign of respect. The air in the ship was breathable, filled with a sweet scent like flowers after rain. "Your Majesty, I'm Captain Jake Rodriguez of the Earthship Prometheus. We received your distress call." The Queen's expression showed something that might have been hope mixed with desperation. "Captain Rodriguez, your people call you Jake." "Yes, it is a strong name. May I call you Jake?" "Of course, Your Majesty. Please, just Lyrale. We have little time for ceremony now." The Queen gestured for them to follow her. "Come, let me show you what we face. Perhaps then you will understand why we called out across the stars for the warrior heart species." As they walked through the corridors, Jake was amazed by what he saw. The ship was indeed alive in some ways. The walls breathed slowly, and streams of light flowed along pathways like glowing rivers. It was beautiful, but Jake could see that something was wrong. Many of the light streams had dimmed to almost nothing, and some sections of the walls looked gray and lifeless. "Our ship is dying because I am dying," Lyrale explained, noticing his observation. "Zephyrian technology is connected to our life force. Our ships, our cities, even our weapons respond to our thoughts and emotions. When the ruler dies, the connection weakens." Dr. Vasquez was recording everything with her scanner. "Remarkable. Organic technology on this scale should be impossible. How do you power such a massive vessel?" "We draw energy from the quantum field that connects all living things," Lyrale replied. "But that connection is being severed by the poison in my system." They entered a vast chamber that took Jake's breath away. It was like standing inside a crystal cathedral, the ceiling arched high above them, covered in constellations of soft lights. But what really got his attention were the Zephyrians scattered throughout the space. There were thousands of them, but Jake could see they were all sick. Many lay on soft, glowing beds while others tended to them. The most heartbreaking sight were the young ones. Zephyrian children looked like tiny versions of the adults, their skin glowing with a faint light, but that light was fading, and many of them were crying with voices like silver bells. "This is what remains of my people," Lyrale said, her voice heavy with grief. "Once, we numbered in the billions across 100 worlds. We had cities that floated in the clouds of gas giants, forests on planets made entirely of crystal, underwater, colonies in seas of liquid methane. We were explorers, artists, builders of beauty." David lowered his weapon completely. The sight of the dying children reminded him of the innocence he had failed to protect at Titan Station. "What happened to you? Who did this?" Lyrale's multifaceted eyes darkened. "The Devourers. They are not a species as you would understand it. They were once like us, a civilization that reached for the stars. But they chose a different path. When their sun began to die, instead of finding new worlds, They found a way to steal the life force from other species to extend their own existence. She led them to a viewing platform where they could see stars through a transparent wall. They consume everything, Captain Jake. Not just bodies, but minds, souls, entire cultures. They leave nothing behind but empty worlds and dead space. Dr. Vasquez looked up from her scanner. How's that even possible? Energy can't be destroyed. Only transferred. Exactly, Lyrale said. They have learned to transfer the life energy of entire civilizations into themselves. But the process corrupted them. They lost their individual consciousness and became a hive mind driven only by hunger. They must feed constantly, or they will die. Jake felt a chill run down his spine. How long have they been chasing you? Over 1,000 years. We have run from system to system, world to world. Every time we tried to make a new home, they found. Each battle cost us more people, more ships, more hope. This vessel is all that remains of our great civilization. But why ask humans for help? David asked. We've only been in space for a few centuries. We're practically primitive compared to your technology. Lyrale moved to another display, showing images of human history. Jake recognized scenes of ancient battles, medieval knights, soldiers from various Earth wars, and even footage from the Titan Station incident. We have been watching your species for over 200 years. She explained. What we observed amazed us. Humans have something that most species lose as they advance technologically. You retain your warrior spirit. You fight not just for survival, but for principles, for others who cannot fight for themselves. She pointed to the images. Your history is filled with examples of ordinary individuals becoming extraordinary when faced with impossible odds. You unite against common threats in ways that defy logic, even when facing superior enemies. Humans find ways to win through courage, creativity, and sheer determination. The Queen turned to face Jake directly. Our ancient prophecies spoke of a warrior-heart species that would emerge from a small blue world. They would be the ones to help us in our darkest hour. When we studied humanity, we knew you were the ones the prophecies described. Elena looked at her scanner readings with concern. Your Majesty, forgive me for being direct, but my readings suggest you don't have much time left. What exactly is this poison that's affecting you? Lyrale touched her chest, where a dark mark was visible through her translucent skin. During our last major battle with the Devourers, their leader touched my mind directly. The psychic contact left a kind of spiritual poison that slowly destroys my connection to the life force. As I weaken, so does our ship, and so do my people. Jake, study the tactical displays around the chamber. How much time do we have? Perhaps the Earth days before my death becomes irreversible, Lyrale said. After that, the ship will lose power, and my people will die in the cold of space. David was studying the star charts, and the Devourers, are they still following you? Before Lyrale could answer, alarms began sounding throughout the chamber. The Zephyrians around them began moving with urgent purpose, tending to their sick, and preparing for something. They are here, Lyrale said, her voice filled with both fear and resignation. I had hoped we had more time. Jake's communication device crackled to life with Lisa's voice from the Prometheus. Captain, you need to see this. We've got massive signatures approaching from deep space, whatever they are. They're big, really big, through the transparent wall. Jake could see shadows beginning to block out the stars. Ships were approaching, but they were unlike anything in his experience. They looked more like mechanical parasites than spacecraft, all angles and sharp edges designed to latch onto other vessels. The Devourer fleet, Lyrale whispered. They have found us once again. The Queen moved to a crystalline console and placed her hands on it immediately. Images appeared showing the approaching enemy. Jake counted at least 50 ships, each one bristling with weapons. Captain Jake, Lyrale said, her voice growing weaker. I must give you something before it is too late. She reached into what looked like a fold in her clothing and pulled out a crystal device, about the size of Jake's fist. It pulsed with internal light and felt warm to the touch when she placed it in his hands. This is the heart of summoning, she explained. It was created by our greatest scientists and mystics in the final days of our homeworld. It has the power to reach across time and space to call forth the greatest warriors your species has ever produced. Jake stared at the crystal. You mean like historical figures, people from Earth's past? Not copies or echoes, but their actual consciousness and physical forms at the peak of their abilities. The device responds to the deepest knowledge in your mind about warfare and leadership. It will call those who are most needed for the battle ahead. Dr. Vasquez was scanning the device frantically. This is impossible. The energy readings suggest it operates on principles we don't even understand. Yet, the crystal felt heavier in Jake's hands as explosions rocked the ship around them. Through the viewing wall, he could see the Devourer ships getting closer, their dark forms blocking out more stars with each passing moment. The Zephyrian vessels. Defenses were holding for now, but Jake could tell they wouldn't last long. Captain, David said, checking his weapon, we need to make a decision fast. Those ships will be on us in minutes. Jake looked down at the heart of summoning. The crystal pulsed with warm light, and somehow he could feel it responding to his thoughts. Images flashed through his mind, warriors from throughout human history, leaders who had faced impossible odds and found ways to win. Your Majesty, Jake said to Lyrale, if I use this thing, what exactly will happen? Queen Lyrale was growing weaker by the minute, but her eyes still held determination. The crystal will reach into the flow of time itself and bring forth the consciousness and physical forms of your greatest military leaders. They will appear here, now, with all their knowledge and abilities intact. Dr. Vasquez looked up from her scanner. That's scientifically impossible. You can't just pull people from different time periods. Your science does not yet understand the true nature of consciousness, Lyrale replied. The crystal works on principles your people will discover in centuries to come. But right now, understanding is less important than survival. Another explosion shook the ship, and several of the light streams on the walls flickered and died. In the distance, Jake could hear the sound of Zephyrian children crying as the ship's life support systems began to fail. How many can it summon? Jake asked. As many as your mind can focus on, Lyrale said. But remember, each one you call will be pulled from their own time. They will need guidance to understand this situation. Jake closed his eyes and thought about the greatest military minds in human history. Names and faces flashed through his memory from all the history books he'd read, all the military academy lessons he'd studied. Alexander the Great, who conquered most of the known world before he was 30. Sun Tzu, whose strategies were still taught in military schools. Joan of Arc, who inspired a nation to fight against impossible odds. All right, Jake said, opening his eyes. Let's see if this thing actually works. He held the crystal up and concentrated on the faces in his mind. The device began to glow brighter, and Jake felt a strange tingling sensation running up his arms. The air in the chamber started to shimmer like heat waves rising from hot pavement. Something's happening, David said, raising his weapon cautiously. The shimmering intensified, and suddenly there was a flash of brilliant light. When Jake's vision cleared, he found himself staring at a man in ancient Greek armor standing in the middle of the chamber. The newcomer had shoulder-length blonde hair and eyes that seemed to take in everything at once. Where am I? The man demanded, in accented English. The translation device Lyrale had given them was working perfectly. This is not Babylon. You're Alexander, Jake said, hardly believing it himself. Alexander the Great. Alexander looked around the chamber, taking in the alien architecture and the dying Zephyrians. His expression shifted from confusion to understanding remarkably quickly. I see. This is some kind of vision or divine intervention. You need a general. Before Jake could respond, another flash of light brought forth a young woman in medieval armor. She looked around with calm determination, as if appearing in an alien spaceship was perfectly normal. I am Joan of Arc, she said simply. God has brought me here for a purpose. More flashes followed in rapid succession. An elderly Chinese man in simple robes appeared, immediately beginning to assess the tactical situation with keen eyes. Japanese warrior materialized with his hand instinctively moving to where his sword should be. A dark-skinned man in Carthaginian military dress looked around with calculating intelligence. Finally, a British naval officer in an 18th century uniform appeared, standing at attention despite his obvious confusion. "Remarkable," said the Chinese man, who Jake recognized as Sun Tzu. "We have been brought together across centuries. This suggests a threat worthy of our combined attention." The British officer, Admiral Nelson, adjusted his uniform and looked at Jake. "I assume you're the commanding officer here, sir. Perhaps you could explain the situation?" Jake looked around at the legendary figures now standing in the alien chamber. Part of him still couldn't believe this was really happening. "Gentlemen, lady, I know this is confusing, but we're facing an enemy that threatens not just this alien species, but potentially all of humanity." Alexander stepped forward, his tactical mind already working. "Show me the enemy's positions. What are their numbers and capabilities?" Lyrale gestured weakly toward the tactical displays. The legendary warriors gathered around as she showed. Then the approaching Devourer fleet, despite being from different time periods. They all recognized the basics of military strategy. 50 ships against 1, noted Hannibal, the Carthaginian general. "Not favorable odds. Numbers mean nothing. If the enemy expects conventional tactics," Sun Tzu observed. "What advantages do we possess?" Joan of Arc was studying the Zephyrian technology with fascination. "This vessel responds to will and spirit, does it not? I can feel the life force within these walls." "Indeed," Lyrale said, "our technology amplifies the power of focused intention, but without my life force to guide it, the ship's systems are failing." Miyamoto Musashi, the Japanese swordsman, had been quietly observing the alien weapons systems. The principle remains the same regardless of the tools. Victory comes from understanding your enemy's weakness and striking decisively. Admiral Nelson was examining the ship's defensive capabilities. "Fascinating. This vessel operates more like a living creature than a ship. The key to naval combat has always been using your environment to your advantage." Another explosion rocked the ship, this one much closer, through the viewing wall. They could see small Devourer attack craft beginning to attach themselves to the hull. "Like mechanical parasites. They're preparing to board," David reported, checking his scanner. Multiple breach points across the ship. Alexander drew the alien weapon he'd been given and tested its weight. "Excellent. I prefer fighting enemies I can see." Jake realized he was now in command of history's greatest military minds. But they were about to face an enemy unlike anything any of them had ever encountered. "Listen, all of you. These Devourers aren't like any army you've fought before. They consume life force itself. They don't just want to defeat us, they want to eat our souls." Sun Tzu nodded thoughtfully. "Then we must ensure they never get the chance to feed." "What is the layout of this vessel?" Lyrale projected a three-dimensional map of the ship into the air above them. "The ship has 17 levels, with the power core at the center. If they reach that, they can drain the life force from everyone aboard." Joan of Arc studied the map with tactical insight that surprised even the other generals. "We make our stand here, in the corridors leading to the core. Force them into narrow passages where their numbers mean less. A sound strategy," agreed Hannibal. "But we'll need to control their approach routes. Can this ship's systems be used to create choke points?" Dr. Vasquez looked up from her analysis of the Zephyrian technology. "I think so. The organic nature of the ship means we can potentially seal passages or create new ones." Alexander was already planning troop movements in his head. "We'll need to divide our forces. Small groups to harass their advance, drawing them into prepared positions." Admiral Nelson examined the ship's weapon systems. These energy cannons could be repositioned to create overlapping fields of fire. Classic naval tactics, just in 3 dimensions instead of 2. Miyamoto Musashi remained silent, but Jake could see him calculating distances and angles for close combat. The swordsman understood that this would ultimately come down to personal skill and courage. "There's something else," Lyrale said weakly. "The Devourers have a leader. A being that was once like me but allowed itself to be consumed by the hunger. It will target me specifically, trying to complete the poisoning process. Then we protect you." Joan said firmly. No commander abandons their people to the enemy. Jake felt a surge of hope as he watched these legendary warriors adapt to their impossible situation. Despite being from different centuries and cultures, they were already working together like a unit that had trained for years. Incoming transmission. Lisa's voice crackled through Jake's communicator. Captain, they're demanding we surrender the Zephyrians. They're offering to let us leave unharmed. Jake looked around at the assembled warriors. What do you think? Should we negotiate? Alexander laughed, a sound like steel ringing on steel. When has negotiating with monsters ever worked? Sun Tzu was more thoughtful. Sometimes a strategic retreat preserves forces for a more favorable battle. These are innocents. Joan said, looking at the dying Zephyrian children, we cannot abandon them to evil. The debate was cut short as the first Devourer boarding pods breached the hull. Alarms blared throughout the ship, and Jake could hear the sound of energy weapons firing in the distance. They're inside, David reported. Multiple teams moving toward the central areas. Alexander hefted his weapon and grinned. Then let's give them a proper welcome. It's been far too long since I had a worthy fight. The corridors of the Zephyrian ship erupted into chaos as the first wave of Devourers poured through the breach points. Jake got his first clear look at the enemy and immediately understood why they were called Devourers. They weren't quite solid, appearing as shifting shadows with red glowing eyes and claws. That seemed to cut through reality itself. By Zeus, Alexander muttered, raising his energy weapon. These are not men. They are nightmares given form. Sun Tzu remained calm, studying the enemy's movement patterns. They move without coordination. Each one acts on instinct rather than strategy. This gives us an advantage. The legendary warriors spread out according to the plan they quickly formed. Joan of Arc positioned herself near the main corridor leading to the ship's core, her presence somehow making the organic walls glow brighter. Hannibal took a team of Zephyrian defenders to set up ambush points in the side passages. Miyamoto Musashi found a narrow choke point where he could face the enemies one at a time. Admiral Nelson had positioned himself at what passed for the ship's bridge, coordinating the vessel's defensive weapons like he was commanding a ship of the line. Adjusting energy cannon angle to cover approach vector 7, he called out, David, can your people redirect power to the port shields? David Chen was amazed at how quickly the ancient naval commander had adapted to alien technology. Already on it, Admiral. These Zephyrian systems are responding to your commands like they understand naval tactics. Dr. Vasquez was working frantically at a biocontrol console. I think I understand how their ship works. It's not just technology, it's a living entity that responds to strong will and clear intention. That's why these warriors can use it so effectively. The first group of Devourers rounded a corner and came face to face with Alexander. The ancient conqueror had always believed that leading from the front was the key to victory, and he wasn't changing his tactics now. He fired the alien energy weapon with the same confidence he'd once shown wielding a sword. Come. Then, shadows, Alexander shouted as he charged forward. Let's see if you can stand against Macedonian steel. The energy beam struck the lead devourer, and something unexpected happened. Instead of simply destroying the creature, the weapon seemed to burn away the darkness, revealing something almost human underneath. For just a moment, Jake caught a glimpse of what the devourer had been before, a being not unlike the Zephyrians, but corrupted by centuries of consuming other life forms. They were people once. Alexander said with surprising sadness, this hunger has made them into monsters. 3 corridors away, Miyamoto Musashi had found his perfect battlefield. The narrow passage forced the Devourers to approach him one at a time, negating their numbers advantage. The legendary swordsmen moved like water, flowing around their attacks and striking with precision that seemed impossible. In my time, I learned that true victory comes not from overpowering your enemy, but from understanding the rhythm of combat, Musashi said as he defeated another attacker. These creatures have no rhythm. They are pure chaos. Joan of Arc had discovered something remarkable. When she focused her will and faith, the ship's organic systems responded with increased power. The walls around her position glowed like sunlight, and the devourers seemed reluctant to approach. They fear the light, she called out to the others. Not just physical light, but the light of purpose and faith. They cannot consume what they cannot understand. Hannibal was proving that his reputation for tactical brilliance was well-deserved. He had positioned small groups of Zephyrian defenders in hidden alcoves throughout the side passages. As devourers moved through what they thought was empty space, they found themselves surrounded and outflanked. The same principles that worked against Rome work against any enemy. Hannibal explained to the Zephyrian warriors fighting alongside him, use their expectations against them, make them think they know where you are, then be somewhere else entirely. Meanwhile, Sun Tzu had taken a different approach. Instead of engaging the enemy directly, he was studying their behavior patterns and looking for weaknesses. He noticed that the devourers seemed to move toward areas with the most life force, like moths drawn to flame. Jake, Sun Tzu called out through the communication system. These creatures are not truly intelligent in the way we understand it. They are driven by hunger alone. If we can give them a target they cannot resist, we can control their movement. Jake was fighting alongside Queen Lyrale, helping to protect the ship's core systems. What kind of target? Themselves, Sun Tzu replied. If we can concentrate enough life force in one location, they will abandon all other objectives to reach it. Dr. Vasquez understood immediately. You want to use the Queen as bait. Concentrate all the ship's remaining life energy around her position. It's too dangerous, Jake protested. If they reach her, she'll die for certain. Lyrale spoke up weakly from her position near the core controls. I am dying already. Captain Jake, if my death can save my people and give you the victory you need, then it is a worthy end. The battle raged for what felt like hours, but was probably only minutes. Each of the legendary warriors was holding their position, but Jake could see they were being slowly overwhelmed. For every devourer they defeated, Timur seemed to take its place. Captain, Admiral Nelson called out, their main ship is moving into position for a direct assault. If they breach the core chamber, all our tactical advantages disappear. Jake made a decision that surprised even himself. All units, fall back to the core chamber. We're changing strategy. Alexander's voice crackled through the communication system. Retreat is not in my vocabulary. Captain, this isn't retreat, Jake replied. This is Sun Tzu's plan. We're going to make them come to us. As the warriors and defenders fell back to the central chamber, Dr. Vasquez worked to redirect all the ship's remaining life energy to the core. The chamber began to glow like a star, and Jake could feel the raw power flowing through the air. They're coming, David reported. All of them, every devourer on the ship is heading straight for us. Queen Lyrale positioned herself at the center of the energy field. If this works, the concentrated life force will be irresistible to them. They will ignore everything else. And if it doesn't work, Jake asked, then we make our last stand. Here, together, Joan of Arc said firmly, there are worse ways to face the end. The legendary warriors formed a defensive circle around the queen, each one ready to give their life to protect her and the remaining Zephyrians. Jake looked around at these impossible allies and felt a surge of hope. If humanity had produced leaders like these throughout history, maybe they really did have a chance. The devourers burst into the chamber like a dark tide, their red eyes fixed on the glowing figure of Queen Lyrale. But as they charged forward, something unexpected began to happen. The concentrated life energy wasn't just attracting them. It was having an effect on their corrupted forms. Look, Dr. Vasquez shouted over the noise of battle. The energy field is burning away their corruption. They're remembering what they used to be. Some of the devourers slowed, confusion replacing hunger in their glowing eyes. Others fought against the effect, their forms flickering between shadow and something more solid. Now we see the true battle, Sun Tzu observed, not just between us and them, but between what they are and what they once were. Alexander raised his weapon, but hesitated. If they can be saved, should we not try? Some battles are fought with weapons, Joan said, her armor glowing in the energy field. But the most important battles are fought with hope. As the climactic confrontation reached its peak, Jake realized that everything they had fought for, the Zephyrians, humanity's future, and maybe even the souls of the Devourers themselves, would be decided in the next few moments. The final choice between consumption and redemption was about to be made. The chamber filled with blinding light as Queen Liralay's life force reached its peak concentration. Jake watched in amazement as some of the Devourers began to change before his eyes. Their shadow forms flickered, revealing glimpses of the beings they had once been: tall, graceful creatures with crystalline skin. Not unlike the Zephyrians themselves. They're fighting it, Dr. Vasquez said in wonder. The corruption is breaking down. But not all of them were changing. The largest Devourer, clearly their leader, pushed through the crowd of confused creatures. This one was different, older, more corrupted, with red eyes that burned with ancient hunger. When it spoke, its voice was like grinding metal. "You cannot save us," it hissed. "We chose this path long ago. We chose survival over honor, existence over meaning. The hunger is all we have left." Alexander stepped forward, his weapon ready. "There's always a choice. I learned that lesson too late in my own life, but it remains true." The Devourer leader laughed, a sound like breaking glass. "You think your primitive weapons can stop us? We have consumed entire galaxies." Sun Tzu moved to Jake's side, speaking quietly. "Captain, I believe there is a way to end this without more bloodshed, but it will require a sacrifice none of us anticipated." "What kind of sacrifice?" Jake asked. "The crystal device you carry," Sun Tzu explained. "It brought us here by connecting our consciousness across time. If we willingly merge our knowledge and experience with it permanently, we could create something powerful enough to break the corruption in all the Devourers." Joan of Arc overheard and nodded slowly. "We would become part of the crystal itself. Our tactical knowledge, our leadership experience, our will to protect others, all of it could be preserved. To help future generations." Miyamoto Musashi spoke. "For the first time since the battle began, in my philosophy, the greatest victory is one that ends the cycle of conflict entirely. If our sacrifice can heal these corrupted beings and protect both our species, then it is the right path." Jake felt the weight of the crystal in his hand. "You're talking about giving up your lives, your chance to return to your own times." Hannibal smiled grimly. "Captain, we were all pulled for moments near our deaths anyway." Alexander died young, consumed by his own ambitions. Joan was captured by her enemies. We each faced our endings already. Admiral Nelson adjusted his uniform one final time. "The greatest honor for any warrior is to serve something larger than themselves. If we can ensure the safety of innocence, then our deaths have meaning." The Devourer leaders sensed what they were planning and lunged forward with incredible speed. But the legendary warriors were ready. They formed a protective circle around Jake, each one facing outward with weapons raised. "You have 30 seconds, Alexander called out. "Whatever you're going to do it now." Jake looked at the heart of summoning crystal, then at Queen Liralle. She was barely conscious, but her eyes were clear. "Your Majesty, will this work?" The crystal responds to pure intention, she whispered. "If they willingly give their essence to it, their combined wisdom could indeed break the corruption that binds the Devourers to their hunger." Jake made his decision. "All right, everyone. Are you sure about this? We are warriors." Joan said simply, "This is what we do." One by one, they placed their hands on the crystal. Jake felt their life force, their knowledge, their unbreakable determination flowing into the device. Alexander's tactical brilliance, Sun Tzu's strategic patience, Joan's unwavering faith, Hannibal's creative problem-solving, Miyamoto's perfect discipline, and Nelson's understanding of sacrifice. All of it merged into something greater than the sum of its parts. The crystal blazed with light brighter than a star. The energy washed over every Devourer in the chamber, and Jake watched as centuries of corruption burned away like morning mist. The shadow forms dissolved, revealing beings that looked similar to Zephyrians, but with skin that sparkled like diamonds. The leader of the former Devourers fell to his knees, his red eyes now clear, and filled with horror at what he had become. "What have we done?" he whispered. "We remember now. We were the Crystalline Empire. We had art, music, poetry. We chose to become monsters rather than face our own mortality with dignity. Queen Raleigh struggled to her feet, and Jake could see that the corruption in her own body was fading as well. The spiritual poison was being burned away by the pure energy radiating from the crystal. The cycle is broken, she said with wonder, for the first time in 1,000 years. The hunt is over. Dr. Vasquez was recording everything frantically. The energy patterns are stabilizing. Both species are being healed by whatever process you just triggered. David checked his scanners. Captain, the Devourer fleet is powering down their weapons. They're sending surrender signals through the viewing wall. Jake could see the massive enemy ships changing. Their dark, mechanical appearance was shifting to something more organic, more alive. The corruption that had turned them into weapons of consumption was disappearing. The crystal in Jake's hands had changed too. Instead of the warm, pulsing device it had been, it now seemed to contain entire galaxies of light. When he looked into its depths, he could almost see the faces of the legendary warriors, still present but transformed into something beyond individual existence. They're still there, Queen Raleigh said, noticing his expression. Their consciousness has become part of the cosmic pattern itself. They will guide and protect for as long as the crystal exists. The leader of the former Devourers approached, slowly, his diamond-like skin reflecting the chamber's light. Captain of Earth, I'm Valdris, once High Counselor of the Crystalline Empire. We owe you a debt that can never be repaid. Your warriors have given us back our souls. Jake felt exhausted but oddly peaceful. What happens now? Now we rebuild. Valdris said, we help the Zephyrians establish new homes on worlds we once destroyed. We use our technology to heal rather than consume, and we stand guard against any future threats to the innocent. Queen Raleigh was growing stronger by the minute as the ship's systems responded to her renewed life force. Captain Jake, your species has fulfilled the ancient prophecies in ways we never imagined. You didn't just help us defeat our enemies, you helped us redeem them. 3 months later, Jake stood on the observation deck of a new space station built jointly by humans, Zephyrians, and the reformed Crystalline Empire. The crystal device sat in a place of honor in the station's central chamber, its light providing guidance to the Alliance's military leaders. Dr. Vasquez had established the first interspecies academy for tactical studies where the wisdom of Alexander, Sun Tzu, Joan, Hannibal, Miyamoto, and Nelson was taught to new generations of peacekeepers. The legendary warriors lived on, not as individuals, but as eternal guardians whose knowledge would protect the innocent across the galaxy. Captain, David said, joining him at the viewing window, we just received word from Earth. Command wants to know if you're ready for your next assignment. Jake smiled, watching ships from 3 different species working together to build a better future. What's the mission? Exploration. There are rumors of another species in the Outer Rim that might need our help, apparently. They've been sending out distress calls. Jake touched the communicator in his pocket, knowing that if they faced another impossible situation, he wouldn't be going in alone. The greatest warriors in human history would be there to guide them, just as they had guided countless others across the centuries. Tell command we're ready, Jake said. After all, protecting others is what warriors do. As their ship prepared to launch toward unknown stars, Jake felt confident that whatever challenges lay ahead, humanity would face them with the wisdom of heroes and the courage to do what was right. No matter the cost, the legacy of Earth's greatest warriors would live on in every choice to stand up for the innocent, in every decision to sacrifice for others, and in every moment when ordinary people chose to become something extraordinary. The warrior heart of humanity beat strong, and it would continue to beat as long as there were those who needed protection among the stars.